Hi, everyone. This is Caroline with Thriving Abroad, Living Abroad, the Expat interviews. And today I'm with someone that I'm really anxious for you to get to know. She has the most incredible story, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to just hear a little bit of this from this fascinating lady. Uh, Renee, thank you so much. Bon dia. Thank you for coming. This is Renee. Now, should we call you Pradara Pem or is Renee? Uh,
Renee's fine.
Renee
Renee's
is
fine. Bon
fine.
dia.
Okay.
Thank you for having me here. Yes.
So, as I said, Renee, you have the most amazing story. Um, I'll let you tell it. If you can, I don't even know where to begin. But so you're originally you're Haitian American, correct?
Yes, correct. Correct. Yes. So I was born in New York to Haitian parents. And, and so I grew up and I became a psychotherapist. I guess I'm trying to think of just the entire story, how to best kind of condense it. But basically, in a nutshell, um, I was living in the US, just kind of conservative parents, and I became a psychotherapist, and I just kind of knew that there was just more to life. Um, I guess I just got burnt out from working in a hospital's crisis center as well as having my private practice. And I decided at the age of 35, which is kind of late, to just close it all down and travel and do my Eat, Pray, Love journey. And this really came after reading the book Eat, Pray, Love. And so initially, I was going to do 3 months in India and a year in Argentina because I needed to learn Spanish. I wanted to learn Spanish. I didn't need to, but I wanted to, as a lot of the clients that I had were Spanish speaking. So I just thought, okay, it would be easy. I would have couple sessions, family therapy sessions, and one didn't speak English. And, I was always worried if the translation was correct. So that's what I decided to do. Now, that journey became something completely different because the beautiful thing is I was open and I allowed things to just flow. I allowed things to go. And so it went from just being a year in Argentina to Peru to Ecuador to Colombia and then to Brazil. Now, I had a friend who she always came to Brazil and she would say, why don't you come to Brazil and meet me there? Like, you're going to love it much better than Argentina. Like, you should be in Brazil, not in Argentina, because there's people that look like you. There's more people that look like you. And so, my journey became, in Argentina, it went from living there to learn Spanish to a spiritual journey. So in Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, I ended up doing a lot of shamanic rituals, ayahuasca ceremonies, things that I had never heard of before, but they kept presenting themselves to me. And so I was like, okay, this is something that I need to do because it's itself to me. So I started doing these ceremonies, and it really was just like years and years and years of therapy in each session. So it was just an amazing journey. Then by the time I got to Brazil, to Salvador specifically, to meet my friend, I immediately felt at home. I immediately felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. I felt even more so at home than in the US. And I think because, my family's from Haiti and Brazil, not only does it have that diaspora feel, it's it made me feel like I was in Haiti. I had been prior to moving to Brazil, I had been to Haiti 2 or 3 times, and I had never been on the continent of Africa. But it was just like being there. It was like I'm home. I'm in Haiti, or I'm in Africa. I'm in some country in Africa. I don't know. Like, there was so many people around. The music, the rhythm, the culture, the food, rich in dende, the oil, like the palm oil, and the people were just so open and inviting. And I just knew, like, from that, I was like, I'm not going back home. And when I went to Brazil, I was supposed to only be in out of the US for a total of a year, with 3 months in India and 9 months in South in Argentina. So Brazil hit my 9 month mark, my year mark, sorry. And so I just stayed. I literally stayed for 2 years in Brazil before I even went back home to the US. So I was gone for a total of 3 years. And when I went back home, to the US, I knew that was no longer my home. I knew Brazil was my home. And so I've been in Brazil now 10 years.
You have left me speechless. I just got little goosebumps listening to that story. That's incredible. And it's funny how you say that. I can relate to the fact that once you leave and you go somewhere and you just feel so comfortable, it's just, you can't really describe that feeling, being in another place that's not your home, but you feel so at home there, as if you're returning to a place that's so familiar, that's so comfortable to you. So I'm so happy that you share that. So many women now are, uh, well, not just women. I mean, so many of us are looking for other places, and a lot of people, feel drawn. Well, maybe they don't feel drawn, but they feel that they need to go to, say, the motherland, to Africa. But there are
Yes.
so many other places that our spirit can be drawn to and can
Yes.
thrive. So that is really
Yes.
just amazing, that transition. So there is the largest uh, Black population in Brazil, I guess, outside of Africa. So it was a really easy, as far as you just blending in to the folks, especially
Yes. And I think,
Salvador Bahia, right?
yes, and I think that was the beauty of it. I was easily able to blend in, and people would just kind of see me and didn't think, no one to this day never thinks I'm American. No one ever thinks I'm American here. They just think I'm Brazilian. And if I start speaking, they hear an accent, but because I'm fluent, they'll say, "Are you from Angola?" Because in Angola, they speak Portuguese as well, or Mozambique. So they just think, okay, she speaks Portuguese, but there's an accent, so she's not from Brazil. And it was interesting because when I traveled South America, people always thought I was Brazilian or from Panama or Colombia, right? Because I spoke Spanish, I learned Spanish, and I was studying Spanish before I traveled. Because again, I went to Argentina to become fluent in Spanish, so I had already been studying Spanish, and so I would speak in Spanish, and people were like, "Oh, are you Brazilian?" Because they hear the accent, but they didn't know where, but they would never think I was American. And so I think there's just this way, and I guess it's from my family being Haitian, being more Haitian American. I don't think I necessarily carry myself, or I think it's just that in South America or all over the world, really, they have an image of Americans being white, blonde hair, blue eyes. So they don't necessarily see in the media that there's a lot of Black Americans as well, or that there's a lot of Blacks in America. So they're always kind of surprised and never think American. So, and I say to women, it's women or people in general, being here, I've met so many people who want to move, but they're so afraid. They're like, well, how do I do it? How am I going to survive? And the interesting thing is, I survive better. Your show is about thriving, right? Thriving abroad. I thrive better here than in the US. And I say to people, I'm like, if I moved back to the US, I would be broke. And people don't realize, because in the US, it's like you have to work, work, work. It's a mentality that you have to work hard. You have to put in a lot of hours for you to be successful and make enough to live. But here in these other countries, they don't have that culture of work, work, work. It's more of a culture of enjoying your life. And I look at my parents that worked so hard, all these hours, and then they die. Or, my family or friends, then they die. And it's like, what did they do? How did they enjoy life? I've heard of people having strokes in their 50s and their 60s, and they work so much. And it's just like, so here it's about truly enjoying the quality of life, your culture, your being. And so being here, I don't have to work as much. I'm telling you, like, it's so crazy. I could literally work maybe 20 hours a week and still do well enough to travel, enjoy life, and live, And so people don't, they just don't, they can never imagine that. And so it's like we come from this mentality that we have to work so hard. And so how can I possibly move to another country and not speak the language? Well, when I got here, I didn't speak Portuguese. I never studied Portuguese, you know? But there's just so many different things that you could do, that you could work in another country. Like literally my first 2 years, now I have permanent residency, but my first 2 years before I left, I was illegal, you know but I found work, and I started teaching English because everybody wants to learn English, and you can make good money teaching English, even if that's not your, you've never studied that, but we know it, we're native speakers. And so you thrive in that until you start speaking a language, and you can start, working, or you can work online, virtually. Everything is virtual now, so I feel like it's even easier now.
You're right about that. Wow. Uh, I don't even know where to ask you again. This is just such a beautiful conversation, and one that a lot of people don't realize. First you mentioned the different lifestyle, and I live in Mexico, and I lived before that in Central America and throughout Latin America. Brazil, of course, it's that lifestyle, that laid back. And a lot of us, I remember when I first moved to Costa Rica, everyone was so slow. And I was so angry because I couldn't understand why everybody is so slow, and I'm in a rush, and I need to go where I need to go, and I need to get things done. And I feel like that's a big adjustment for us, as being from the American culture, that, come on, hurry up. And even today, here I'm in Mexico, and it's the same, like, okay, are you coming today? Are you coming tomorrow? Is it going to happen next week, next month? So that is a big adjustment.
It is a huge adjustment. And it's so funny because when I first got here, Brazil as well, and in South America with my traveling, and I love Mexico, by the way. I love Tulum and Playa del Carmen.
Hey.
Love it. Yes. So I thought about moving there. The next place I move to, if I decide to leave Brazil, would probably be Mexico. So, and it was so funny because I remember when I first got here, and I was like, okay, I went to, I found, I did some research, and I found online schools where I could teach English, and I sent in my resume and no response. And I'm like, what? They're not responding to me. And then a friend said, oh no, yeah, they never respond to emails. You just have to go in. And I'm like, what? And so I would walk in, and then when I walked in, they're like, oh yes, we love you. When can you start? And so I'm like, man, I could have started like a week ago had you opened my resume, my email, and responded. So then, yeah, start now. So I'm like, okay. And I go in, I had the interview, and I said, I've never taught English. Yeah, but you're great. We love you. You're native. You can start. And then I was like, okay, well, I'd love some training. I'd like to sit in the classroom. And I get there the next day to start. And then the teachers, the manager or whatever, he's like, okay, well, our teacher called out. We need you to just go in and teach the classroom. I'm like, well, but I've never taught before. Oh, you'll be fine. Here, play this video and talk about this. And I'm like, okay. So I got thrown in, and they're like, oh yes, it was great. And the kids loved me because I'm from New York, and they just had questions, so it's just like that. And it took me, I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time, many years before I adjusted to that. Because New York is very fast paced. And then, but even, when I moved here, I was living in the Washington, D.C. area in Maryland, and it's also fast paced, so everything is like, you got to get things done. You got to get things done. And here's like, things will get done, but it'll get done on its own time, in its own place. And I was just like, this is teaching me patience, because I didn't have patience. I didn't have tolerance, obviously, and so all of these things, my background is as a psychotherapist, and now I'm back doing my job, as a therapist and being able to do it virtually. So that's good, but it's taught me so much. And so now, as a therapist with my job, I have so much more to offer my clients, through doing the spirituality. Like, you even think about, and I say this to say, because when we live in the States, we think that we know everything, right? The States just has, the US or Europe, it just has this certain mentality. And I remember as a therapist, I thought if you heard voices, you're automatically psychotic, right? You need to be on medicine, you're paranoid. But having traveled throughout South America and even in India and now being in Brazil, there's so many people that's connected to the spiritual realm, to spirituality, to their ancestors. And they talk about hearing these voices, connecting to, their ancestors. And so now that's just changed me where, even now I'm open and I've connected. And I'm like, my first time, being in Peru and doing this San Pedro ceremony, which is similar to ayahuasca, I connected to my dad who had passed away a year before, and I heard him speak. And so it's like now my therapy is so different than before. And I say that when you leave the US and you live in another country, your life changes, it expands. And you see the things that you once thought was crazy or not possible, you realize is possible. And when you live in another country, these countries are just so magical. I really believe the world is magical, but when you're in another country, you're so much more open. So you allow the synchronicities to happen. Like, so many things happen because we're not stressed and rushed on a day to day. So someone will come in and say exactly what you need to hear, or come in to put you on that path that you need to go into. And that's what makes it magical.
Yes, you are so right. And I think that what you said is true. The fact that we are not in that lifestyle from before where we're constantly under pressure, under stress, and we don't have time to stop and smell the roses, so to speak.
Mhm.
It's just a different experience once you are in a different place, in a sacred place. Tell me a little bit about your healing therapies. What do you do with your clients?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's completely evolved. So living in Brazil, I studied transpersonal psychology, which was amazing. So I did a postgraduate degree here. Then, I did a shamanic training. So now I kind of call myself a medicine woman sometimes as well. But a lot of people are like, "Yeah, you're a medicine woman." It's just I still haven't embraced that name completely, but because I work with different plant medicines. I work with energy. And the latest that I've been doing that I've added on in the last 5, 6 years is tantric therapy. So tantric therapy, when people hear tantra, they think of, oh, tantric sex. But no, that's not what I work with. I worked with tantra, we're working with sexual energy to help you release the traumas, the blockages that's in your body so that you can have more intimate connections with yourself, with your family members, and with your partner, right? Because our sexual energy is our vital life force energy. So I'm working with that. Now, if you go to different systems, they're still working with that vital life force energy that Tantra calls Kundalini or sexual energy. But if you're doing yoga, we're working with the prana. If you're doing Chinese medicine, they're working with that chi, or Japanese medicine like Reiki, you're working with that ki, which is that energy. So each of the systems have its different names. So that's what I'm working with now. And so in my virtual sessions, I'm using different meditations, I'm using breath work, rebirthing, which is a series of breathing techniques to really help people move that energy in their body and work through depression, anxiety, trauma. And I have so many people that come to me, especially from the US, but even within Brazil and South America. I've traveled, so many women that have been sexually abused. And so this is such a huge part of cultures all around the world where women have been violated. Women have not been seen as a person. We've been seen as objects. So a lot of my work is working on healing women that's been abused, that's been sexually abused, or have not been able to speak their voice. But I do work with everyone. So but that's been the focus of my work, you know.
That's amazing, and you're right. In my Black Women Thriving Abroad group, we hear stories, and actually women have shared stories about what you've described. The abuse, and I also feel that it's so traumatic for us at times when we do transition to a new place, that we're oftentimes not able to receive the full benefits because of that,
Mhm.
the trauma that we carry around with us. Like, we bring another suitcase full of trauma along,
Yes.
that baggage. And it's so important, to just release and let all of that go so you can have the best
Mhm.
experience. um, we're going to have to do a part two, Renee. This has been such a wonderful experience for me talking with you. How do we reach you if there's someone watching that wants to connect with you, that like to get more information about what you do, how you can help?
Yes. Okay. So I can be reached at on Instagram at Prandata Prim, PRANDHARAPREM _tantra. So that's a long name. Prandata Prim _tantra, PRANDHARAPREM _tantra, TANTRA. Also on Facebook by my name, Renee Adolphe. So that's RENEE ADOLPHE. So Renee Adolphe. And my website is prandataprim.com. So www.PRANDHARAPREM.com. So you can find me either under Renee or Prandata, Renee Adolphe or Prandata Prim. And I have a
Okay.
YouTube channel that shares a lot about my journey, my healing work. So you can find me on YouTube as well, Googling either of those names on YouTube, Renee Adolphe or Prandata Prim.
Okay, great. I will
Yes,
leave
I
the
would love
links.
to be back for a part two
You are
because
going
there's
to
still
be.
so much that I can
Yes.
talk about. Oh my
Yes,
God.
absolutely. There's no question we're going to be doing part two. Just I wanted to ask you just to give a few last words of wisdom for someone watching that is kind of on the edge about doing it, someone that's feeling fearful. What are some words of wisdom that you can share?
Mhm. Just do it. you know, so let me tell you, things are going to keep coming up. When I was planning for my trip, even though it was going to be a year and it wasn't a move, things kept coming up, and I had a home, my roof leak, like so many different things kept happening, and I was like, oh my God, like it's just not going to happen. And finally, I was like, I just have to do it. And so I set a date. I said, December 31st, 2009, I'm leaving because I'm going to start the new year in India. And I was like, I don't care what happens, I'm leaving that day. So I bought that ticket, and things were coming up, and I just kept doing it. I didn't even find anybody to rent my home. I was like, I don't care, I'm leaving. And from there, I still kept trying to find somebody to rent my home. This was pre Airbnb. So that was difficult. Now it's so much easier because you have Airbnb. So if you have a home, there's no excuse. You can get your home rented out. I had to like get a realtor and all of this to look for me. So I say, do it. Now, you can also decide, okay, I go to that country that you're thinking of, check it out. That way you can plan and see how it is and see how you can like it. You can travel to a few different countries if you're able to, you know, um, to see and get a feel for it. Now, now it's a little bit easier as well that people are working virtually. Now, if you're not working virtually and you have a job that you have to go into, you can check and just on your vacations, travel to a different country on your vacations to get a feel for it. There are international schools all over the world that will hire people to teach a subject at a school in English. So you can teach psychology, you can teach English, you can teach math, you can teach history. You can teach law. Based on your field, you can teach that topic in English in another country and do really well. Now, I've met a lot of Americans that have taught in these American schools, and they've made so much money that they've been able to pay off their student loans, pay off everything that they own. So you can make good money because they'll pay for your rent, and so the money that you're making is just for entertainment and whatever it is that you want to save. So you can make 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 in a year where you're not having to pay for anything because they're already paying your bills, your transportation, your home. So that money is going into whatever you have to pay off back at home. So I say, think about looking into one of those things. Um, and yeah, start making a plan, make a plan, choose a date, do it. If you're one of those people who have to know the country first, go to the country, visit it. um, get online. There's many different expat groups online. Start knowing people. There's Black Packers Travel. There's Black Expats of Brazil. There's Black Expats. There's Black in Tulum. There's so many different groups. So start using your online tools to start making connections. And that's one of the things that I do that allows me to travel around the world. Whatever country I'm going to, I already search that group and I go into that group, whether it's in Indonesia and Bali, Thailand, wherever, and I start making connections. And I start saying, I work with tantra therapy. And then I get there and I find work. People are already calling me saying, hey, can we set up a session? So use the internet, use the tools that we have, and you'll love it. You'll do great. You'll be able to move easily to another country and have resources.
That's awesome. I'm already writing down questions for part 2. We're going to do this again. Thank you so much, Renee. It has been a pleasure, and we're going to be doing part 2 soon. But hopefully, your little nuggets of wisdom will help someone today, and we're going to have you back for the second part of it. Thank you again. Thanks for sharing your story. It has been such an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
You're so welcome, and thank you so
Muito
much
obrigada.
for inviting me. Yes, muito obrigada. Thank you so much for inviting me on, for having me here. I love this. I love sharing, so people feel free to contact me with any questions that you have. And thank you again so much, Caroline.
Thank you.
And I hope to come visit you in Mexico.
You better. We have a seat waiting for you here at our table.
Yes. Yeah.